The notification sound from my phone cut through the silence of our empty house like a knife. I was sitting in my home office, staring at 3 monitors displaying network security protocols for the regional hospital where I work as an IT specialist. The cursor blinked mockingly at me as I reached for the device. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The text was from Lila, my wife of 8 years. Don't worry, I'll be back in a week. I stared at those words for a full minute, my brain refusing to process what I was reading. Back from where? She'd left this morning while I was in the shower, and I'd assumed she went to her marketing job at the converted textile mill downtown, but now it was 7 p.m., and she wasn't home. My fingers moved across the screen before my rational mind could stop them. I opened the camera, held the phone at arm's length, and took a selfie, but I wasn't alone in the frame. Hey, take another one, Sasha said, sliding closer to me on the couch. She was Lila's younger sister, who'd stopped by an hour ago to drop off some books she'd borrowed. Sasha had always been the rebellious one. Single mom, sharp tongue, never afraid to speak her mind. She was the complete opposite of her image-obsessed older sister. I snapped the photo. Both of us were smirking, Sasha's arm draped casually around my shoulders. Without hesitation, I sent it to Lila with the message, "Relax. No one's waiting for you. You're already replaced." "Dylan, what the hell?" Sasha grabbed my phone, reading the exchange. Her face went from confusion to fury in seconds. "She just left? Without telling you where she was going?" "Apparently." I stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked our manicured suburban lawn. The house felt different now, hollow somehow. Want to know the really funny part? If only loyalty was as easy to get as a pizza delivered to this house. Sasha was quiet for a moment, then her voice turned deadly serious. "Dylan, I need to tell you something. Lila didn't mention any trip to me, and we talk every day. Sisters don't just disappear without warning." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Lila. I answered on speaker. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Lila's voice was shrill, panicked. "That picture. Are you insane?" "Where are you, Lila?" My voice was calmer than I felt. I'm visiting Mom." The lie came too quickly, too rehearsed. "Your mom's been dead for 3 years. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Lila spoke again, her tone shifting to that manipulative sweetness she used when she was caught. "Look, I just needed some space, some time to think about us." "With who?" "What do you mean, with who? I'm alone." Sasha made a disgusted noise and snatched the phone from me. "Lila, it's me. Cut the crap. Where are you, really?" "Sasha? What are you doing there?" Now Lila sounded genuinely rattled. "I came to return your books and found your husband sitting alone in an empty house. So I'll ask again, where the hell are you?" "I don't have to explain myself to you." "Actually, you do, because whatever you're doing, it's about to blow up in your face." Sasha looked at me meaningfully. "Dylan's not the pushover you think he is." The line went quiet for several seconds. When Lila spoke again, her voice had turned cold. "Enjoy your little staycation, Dylan. I'll be back when I'm ready." The call ended. Sasha and I stared at each other in the sudden silence. "She's cheating," Sasha said flatly. "I've suspected it for months." "With who?" But even as I asked, I knew. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. "Mason Drake. He's back in town after his divorce. They've been messaging on social media, and Julia's been playing matchmaker." Mason Drake. Lila's high school boyfriend, the golden boy who'd broken her heart when he left for college. Trust fund baby who'd never worked a real day in his life, and Julia Martinez was Lila's best friend, a social climbing gossip who lived for drama. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. "Sasha, how good are you at keeping secrets?" "Depends. What kind of secrets?" "The kind that could destroy someone's life." My fingers flew across the keyboard as I accessed our shared cloud storage. See, the thing about being married to someone for 8 years is that you share everything. Passwords, accounts, digital footprints. What I found in Lila's backed-up messages made my blood run cold. Months of flirting with Mason. Plans for secret meetups. And then the smoking gun. A hotel reservation confirmation for a lakeside resort 2 hours north. For 2 people. For a week. "Oh my God," Sasha breathed, reading over my shoulder. "She's been planning this for months." I scrolled through more messages, my anger building with each exchange. There were photos, Lila in lingerie I'd never seen, selfies taken in our bedroom while I was at work, messages about how boring I was, how she deserved better, how Mason made her feel alive again. But the worst part was Julia's involvement. She'd been actively encouraging the affair, even offering to provide alibis. She'd been in my house, eaten dinner at my table, looked me in the eye, and smiled while helping my wife cheat. "Dylan," Sasha's voice was gentle, "what are you going to do?" I closed the laptop and turned to face her. You know what they say about revenge being best served cold? I prefer mine with a side of public humiliation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw your wife at Murphy's bar tonight. Thought you should know she wasn't alone. Murphy's bar. The local hangout where everyone in our small Maine town eventually ended up, where gossip spread faster than wildfire and reputations were made or destroyed over cheap beer and whispered conversations. Sasha, I said, grabbing my keys. How do you feel about crashing a party? Murphy's bar was exactly as I'd expected, dimly lit, crowded with the usual mix of locals and summer people. But Lila and Mason weren't there. According to the bartender, they'd left an hour ago, heading toward the Yacht Club. The Millbrook Yacht Club sat on the shore of our town's pristine lake, a relic from the days when textile money built grand summer homes and exclusive social circles. Now it was mostly maintained by old money families and newcomers trying to buy their way into respectability. Sasha and I parked across the street and watched through the large windows as the weekly mixer unfolded inside. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, people in expensive casual wear pretending their lives were perfect. There, Sasha pointed, by the bar. Lila stood with her back to the window, but I'd recognize her auburn hair and posture anywhere. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, black, sophisticated, expensive. Mason had his hand on her lower back, leaning down to whisper in her ear. She threw her head back and laughed, the picture of carefree happiness. She looks different, I said. She looks guilty. Sasha's voice was sharp with anger. Look at Julia. Sure enough, Julia was there too, playing the role of wingwoman perfectly. She kept watch while Lila and Mason got increasingly intimate, running interference when other people tried to approach. I have an idea, I said, pulling out my phone, but I'll need your help. What do you need? Your membership card. Sasha raised an eyebrow. I haven't been to the yacht club in 2 years. But you're still a member. Your ex-husband made sure you kept the membership in the divorce settlement, remember? Understanding dawned on her face. You want to go in there. Not just go in. I want to make an entrance. 20 minutes later, we walked through the yacht club's front doors like we owned the place. I'd changed into the spare dress shirt I kept in my car, and Sasha had touched up her makeup. We looked like any other couple out for an evening of socializing. The main room was buzzing with conversation and clinking glasses. A jazz trio played softly in the corner while waiters circulated with hors d'oeuvres. It was the kind of scene Lila had always loved, sophisticated, exclusive, full of people to impress. We grabbed drinks from the bar and began to mingle, working our way slowly toward where Lila and Mason were holding court near the windows. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice us approaching. Dylan? The voice came from behind me. I turned to see Robert Chen, the yacht club's manager, looking confused. I didn't expect to see you here tonight. Robert, good to see you. I shook his hand warmly. Sasha convinced me to get out of the house for once. Robert's eyes flicked toward where Lila was standing with Mason, then back to me. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the wheels turning. Everyone knew everyone in a town this size, and gossip traveled fast. Well, enjoy your evening, he said diplomatically, but he lingered nearby, clearly curious about how this would play out. I caught Sasha's eye and nodded toward the large screen TV mounted on the far wall. It was currently displaying the yacht club's promotional slideshow, but I knew from my IT background that it was connected to the building's wireless network. While Sasha created a distraction by accidentally bumping into Julia and spilling her drink, I pulled out my phone and opened the wireless casting app I'd installed earlier. The yacht club's network was surprisingly unsecured, a mistake I was about to exploit. Within seconds, I was connected to the display system. I opened Lila's message thread and selected the most damning screenshots. Her explicit messages to Mason, the hotel reservation, the photos she'd sent him. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice just enough to get attention, I'd like to propose a toast. The room gradually quieted as people turned to look at me. Lila finally noticed my presence, her face going white with shock. To my loving wife, I continued, gesturing toward Lila while simultaneously tapping my phone screen. Who taught me that sometimes the best way to learn the truth is to read it for yourself? The large screen flickered, and suddenly Lila's private messages were displayed for everyone to see. The reaction was immediate and electric. Gasps, whispers, people pulling out their phones to take pictures. Dylan, stop! Lila's voice was desperate as she pushed through the crowd toward me, but I wasn't done. And to her dear friend Julia, who proved that loyalty is just a word people use when it's convenient. More screenshots appeared on the screen. Julia's messages encouraging the affair, her offers to provide alibis, her cruel comments about me behind my back. Julia tried to grab my phone, but Sasha intercepted her smoothly. I don't think so, sweetheart. You helped make this mess. Now you get to watch it unfold. Mason finally found his voice. This is a private matter. You have no right. No right? I laughed, the sound echoing in the suddenly quiet room. You're absolutely right, Mason. I have no right to expect loyalty from my wife, no right to expect honesty from her friends, no right to expect basic human decency from people I trusted. The room was completely silent now, except for the soft jazz music still playing in the background. Every eye was on us. Every phone was recording. This would be all over social media within the hour. But you know what I do have a right to, I continued, advancing toward Mason. I have a right to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you really are. Mason took a step back, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You're crazy. You're having some kind of breakdown. Am I? I gestured toward the screen, which was still displaying their messages. Because from where I'm standing, everything looks pretty clear. Lila was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Dylan, please? Can we talk about this privately? Privately? Sasha laughed harshly. Like how you privately planned this little getaway, like how you privately decided to humiliate your husband. The crowd was getting restless, sensing that the show was far from over. Robert Chen was hovering nearby, clearly torn between maintaining order and watching the drama unfold. You want to know what's really funny? I said, my voice carrying easily across the room. I actually came here tonight to fight for my marriage. I was going to beg you to come home, to work things out, to give us another chance. I paused, letting that sink in. But then I realized something. You can't fight for someone who's already gone. You can't save something that's already dead. With that, I disconnected from the display system and pocketed my phone. The screen returned to its bland promotional slideshow, but the damage was done. The entire room was buzzing with whispered conversations and barely concealed excitement. Enjoy the rest of your evening, I said to the room in general. Then, to Lila specifically, and enjoy your trip. I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be. Sasha and I walked toward the exit with as much dignity as we could muster. Behind us, I could hear Lila sobbing and Julia trying to do damage control. Mason was arguing with someone, his voice rising above the general commotion. As we reached the door, Robert Chen appeared beside me. Dylan, he said quietly, I'm sorry about all this. Don't be, I replied. Sometimes the truth needs a spotlight. We walked out into the cool evening air, leaving chaos in our wake. My phone was already buzzing with notifications, texts, calls, social media alerts. The story was spreading. Holy shit, Sasha said as we reached the car. Did we really just do that? We did. I felt strangely calm, like the eye of a hurricane. And we're just getting started. My phone rang. It was Lila. You've destroyed everything, she said when I answered. Our marriage, our reputation, our lives. No, Lila, I said quietly. You did that. I just made sure everyone else knew about it. The line went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more calculating. This isn't over, Dylan. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You want to play games? Fine. But remember, I know all your secrets too. The call ended, leaving me staring at my phone in the darkness of the parking lot. Sasha was watching me with concern. What did she say? She's not giving up. I started the engine, my mind already racing ahead to the next move. She thinks she can still win this. Can she? I thought about all the evidence I'd gathered, all the ammunition I had left to use. Let's find out. The next morning brought a flood of phone calls, texts, and social media notifications. The yacht club incident had gone viral in our small town's social circles. Everyone wanted to know more details, offer support, or simply satisfy their curiosity about the drama. I was sitting in my home office trying to focus on work when my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Julia standing on my front porch, looking nervous and agitated. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. What do you want, Julia? We need to talk. She glanced around nervously, as if expecting photographers to jump out of the bushes. What you did last night was completely out of line. Was it? I leaned against the doorframe, studying her face. Because from where I stand, I just shared some interesting text messages. All true, all real, all sent by people who claim to be my friends. You humiliated Lila in front of the entire town. Lila humiliated herself. I just provided the documentation. Julia's composure cracked slightly. Look, I know how this looks, but you don't understand the whole situation. Then explain it to me. She hesitated, glancing around again. Can I come in? I don't want to have this conversation on your front porch. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her enter. She followed me to the living room, but remained standing, too agitated to sit. Lila was unhappy, she began. She has been for years. She felt trapped, unappreciated, taken for granted. So she decided to have an affair. She decided to explore her options. Julia's voice took on the tone of someone who'd rehearsed this speech. Mason represents everything she used to be before she settled down. He reminds her of who she was when she felt alive and excited about life. And what do I represent? Julia looked uncomfortable. You represent stability, security, the safe choice. How flattering. I sat down in my favorite chair, forcing her to either sit or stand awkwardly above me. She chose to sit on the edge of the couch. So in your expert opinion, I should just accept that my wife needs to feel alive and excited with other men? I think you should consider what's best for everyone involved. Everyone meaning Lila and Mason. Everyone meaning all of you. This public spectacle isn't helping anyone. I studied Julia's face, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the way her hands trembled slightly. She was more rattled than she was letting on. You're scared, I realized. Last night was just the beginning, wasn't it? You're worried about what else I might reveal. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. I leaned forward. See, the thing about being an IT security specialist is that I understand how digital footprints work. Every message, every photo, every search history leaves a trail. And when you've been helping someone cover their tracks, your footprints get mixed up with theirs. Julia's face went pale. Dylan, whatever you think you know. I know that you helped Lila book that hotel room using your credit card to hide the transaction from me. I know that you provided alibis for at least 6 different occasions when she was actually with Mason. I know that you've been actively sabotaging my marriage for months. She stood up abruptly. I was being a good friend. To who? Because it sure wasn't to me? I was trying to help Lila figure out what she really wanted. By encouraging her to lie and cheat and betray the person who trusted her most? Julia moved toward the door, but I wasn't finished. The real question is why, I continued. What did you get out of it? What was your motivation for destroying my marriage? She stopped with her hand on the doorknob. You really don't know, do you? Know what? She turned back to face me, and for the first time, I saw genuine emotion in her eyes. Mason and I have history too, Dylan. We dated briefly 2 years ago before he moved away. When he came back to town, I hoped. Understanding hit me like a physical blow. You thought if he was with Lila, you'd have another chance with him. I thought if he got her out of his system, he'd realize what he really wanted. But that's not how it worked out. No. Her voice was barely a whisper. He's completely obsessed with her, always has been. I'm just the friend who helps him get what he wants. The pieces were falling into place now. Julia hadn't just been helping Lila cheat. She'd been orchestrating it, hoping to manipulate the situation to her own advantage. So what now? I asked. Your plan backfired. Mason's still chasing Lila, and everyone in town knows what kind of person you really are. Julia reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. She set it on the coffee table between us. If you really want to destroy them, she said quietly, use this. I stared at the drive without touching it. What's on it? Everything. Photos, videos, financial records, other women Mason's been involved with. Evidence of things that would ruin both of them completely. Why are you giving this to me? Because I'm tired of being used. Because I'm tired of watching him treat women like disposable toys. Because maybe it's time someone held him accountable for his actions. She moved toward the door again, then paused. But Dylan, once you use that information, there's no going back. It won't just destroy them. It'll destroy any chance you have of rebuilding your life quietly. Maybe I don't want to rebuild quietly. Julia nodded as if she'd expected that answer. Then I guess you better be prepared for war. After she left, I sat staring at the USB drive for a long time. My phone buzzed with a text from Sasha. How are you holding up? I typed back. Just got some interesting intelligence from an unexpected source. Good or bad? Depends on how you define those terms. Want company? Actually, yes. I think I'm going to need a partner for what comes next. While I waited for Sasha to arrive, I plugged the USB drive into my computer. What I found there was worse than I'd imagined. Julia hadn't been exaggerating. The drive contained enough evidence to destroy Mason's reputation completely and take Lila down with him. There were photos of Mason with at least 4 different women over the past 2 years, including 2 who were married. Financial records showing that he'd been borrowing money from multiple sources to maintain his lifestyle, including funds that appeared to have been taken from his elderly mother's accounts. And videos that made it clear his relationship with Lila was just one of several ongoing affairs. But the most damaging material was a series of recordings that Julia had apparently made without Mason's knowledge. In them, he bragged about his conquests, laughed about the pathetic husbands who never suspected their wives were cheating, and made detailed plans for extracting money and favors from his various lovers. When Sasha arrived, I showed her some of the less explicit materials. Her reaction was immediate and visceral. "This guy is a predator," she said. "He's not just cheating, he's systematically manipulating and exploiting women." "Including your sister?" "Especially my sister." Sasha's voice was hard with anger. "She thinks she's special, that she's different from his other victims. She has no idea she's just another mark. The question is, what do we do with this information?" Sasha was quiet for a moment, studying the evidence on my screen. "Dylan, if you release this stuff, it won't just hurt Mason and Lila. Some of these other women are going to be exposed too. Their families will be destroyed." "I know. Are you okay with that?" I thought about it carefully. "The way I see it, Mason is the one who created this situation. He's the one who chose to manipulate and exploit these women. If exposing him causes collateral damage, that's on him, not me." "And Lila?" "Lila made her choice. She chose to betray our marriage, to humiliate me publicly, to throw away 8 years for a fantasy. She gets to live with the consequences." Sasha nodded slowly. "Okay, but if we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. We need to make sure it has maximum impact and that we can't be traced back to the source." "I have some ideas about that." My phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. It was from the lakeside resort where Lila and Mason were staying. "Hello? Is this Dylan Harper?" The voice was female, professional. "Yes." "This is Sarah Mitchell from the Pine Lake Resort. I'm calling because there's been an incident involving your wife." My blood went cold. "What kind of incident?" "She's been arrested, sir. She asked me to call you." The Pine Lake Resort was a 2-hour drive through winding mountain roads, giving me plenty of time to think about what I might find when I arrived. Sasha had insisted on coming with me, despite my protests that this was something I needed to handle alone. "She's my sister," Sasha had said firmly. "And besides, you're going to need a witness for whatever happens next." The resort was exactly the kind of place Lila would choose. Expensive, picturesque, designed for romantic getaways. We found the manager's office easily enough, following signs through the rustic luxe lobby filled with leather furniture and stone fireplaces. Sarah Mitchell turned out to be a woman in her 50s with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She looked relieved when we introduced ourselves. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, gesturing for us to sit in the chairs across from her desk. "I have to say, this is not the kind of situation we typically deal with here." "What exactly happened?" I asked. Sarah consulted a file on her desk. "Your wife and her companion were involved in an altercation with another guest last night. The police were called, and both your wife and Mr. Drake were arrested for assault and public intoxication." "Assault?" Sasha leaned forward. "Lila assaulted someone?" "According to witnesses, your wife attacked another woman in the resort's bar. Apparently there was some kind of confrontation about Mr. Drake's attention to this other woman." I felt a laugh building in my chest and had to suppress it. "Let me guess. Mason was flirting with someone else, and Lila didn't take it well." Sarah's expression confirmed my suspicion. "The other woman was also a guest here with her husband. She claims that Mr. Drake approached her inappropriately, and when she rejected his advances, your wife accused her of leading him on." "Where are they now?" "The county jail, about 20 minutes from here. They were supposed to be released on bail this morning, but there's been a complication." "What kind of complication?" Sarah looked uncomfortable. "It seems that Mr. Drake's credit cards have been declined, and your wife's accounts appear to be frozen." Sasha and I exchanged glances. "Frozen how?" "I'm not privy to the details, but the bail bondsman said there was some kind of hold placed on her accounts by her bank. Something about suspicious activity." I pulled out my phone and opened our joint banking app. Sure enough, there were multiple fraud alerts and temporary holds on several accounts. It took me a moment to figure out what had triggered them, and then I started laughing. "What's so funny?" Sasha asked. The hotel charges from this place, combined with several large cash withdrawals and unusual spending patterns, triggered our bank's fraud protection system. They automatically froze the accounts pending verification. Can you unfreeze them? Of course I can. I'm the primary account holder. I looked at Sarah. But I'm not going to. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? My wife chose to take this little vacation without discussing it with me. She chose to use our joint accounts to fund her affair. She chose to get herself arrested. I think she can figure out how to deal with the consequences. Mr. Harper, Sarah said carefully. I understand you're upset, but I'm not upset, I interrupted. I'm done. There's a difference. Sasha put her hand on my arm. Dylan, think about this. If you leave her in jail, it becomes a bigger story. More public, more dramatic. She was right, but I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Lila. I'm allowed one phone call and I need you to come get me, please. I showed the message to Sasha, who shook her head. She still doesn't get it. She still thinks you're going to rescue her. I typed back, I'm at the resort. Heard about your arrest. Sounds like you're having the exciting, alive experience you wanted. The response came quickly. This isn't funny, Dylan. I need help. So did I. For months. While you were planning this behind my back. Please. I'll explain everything. I'll make it right. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed, You can't make this right, Lila. Some things can't be fixed. Sarah cleared her throat. Mr. Harper, I don't mean to intrude, but we do need to resolve the matter of their unpaid bill. The room charges, meals, and incidental expenses total nearly $3,000. Send the bill to Mason Drake. This was his idea. His cards were declined, as I mentioned. Then I guess you have a problem. I stood up. But it's not my problem. Sasha followed me toward the door, but Sarah called after us. Wait, there's something else you should know. We turned back. Sarah looked even more uncomfortable than before. The other woman, the one your wife allegedly assaulted, she's pressing charges. But she also mentioned something about recognizing Mr. Drake from somewhere else. What do you mean? She said he approached her at another resort last month, when she was there with her family. She thinks he might be targeting female guests at upscale resorts. The pieces clicked into place. Mason wasn't just a serial cheater. He was using these romantic getaways as hunting grounds for new victims. And Lila had walked right into his trap, thinking she was special. Did she report this to the police? She's planning to. Apparently, she's going to contact other resorts in the area to see if there have been similar incidents. I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. Mason's house of cards was starting to collapse, and he was taking Lila down with him. Thank you for the information, I said. And Sarah? When the police ask about character references for either of them, you might want to mention that they left their spouses to come here together. As we walked back to the car, Sasha was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. You're really going to leave her there. I'm really going to leave her there. She's going to hate you for this. She already hates me. The only difference is now it's mutual. We drove back toward town in comfortable silence, but my phone kept buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from Lila. I ignored them all until one finally caught my attention. Dylan, Mason left. He got someone else to bail him out, and he just left me here. Please. I showed the message to Sasha, who whistled low. Wow, he really is a piece of work. She's starting to figure out what kind of man she threw her marriage away for. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a moment, then typed. Sounds like you're getting that exciting, unpredictable experience you wanted. Enjoy. But even as I sent the message, I was already planning my next move. Mason might have abandoned Lila at the first sign of trouble, but that didn't mean he was going to escape the consequences of his actions. It was time to use Julia's USB drive. By the time we got back to town, word of Lila and Mason's arrest had already started spreading. Small towns have their own communication networks, faster and more efficient than any social media platform. By evening, everyone would know the basic facts, and by tomorrow, the story would have grown into something even more dramatic than the truth. I spent the afternoon carefully planning my next move. The USB drive contained enough evidence to destroy Mason completely, but I needed to be strategic about how I released it. Random accusations on social media would be dismissed as the bitter revenge of a cuckolded husband, but if the information came from multiple sources, through different channels, it would be much harder to ignore. First, I created anonymous accounts on several platforms and began uploading selected pieces of evidence. Photos of Mason with various women, financial records showing his debts and questionable transactions, audio recordings of him bragging about his conquests. I spread the releases across different times and platforms to make it look like multiple people were coming forward. Then I did something that felt particularly satisfying. I sent copies of the financial evidence to Mason's elderly mother's attorney. If Mason had been stealing from her accounts, she deserved to know. Finally, I reached out to the other women who appeared in the evidence. Not to shame them, but to warn them about what kind of man they were dealing with. Some of them were clearly victims who had no idea they were being manipulated. They deserved a chance to protect themselves. By 6 p.m., my phone was ringing constantly. Reporters from the local paper, friends wanting to know if the stories they were hearing were true, even a few national gossip blogs that had somehow picked up the story. I ignored most of the calls, but when Robert Chen from the Yacht Club called, I decided to answer. "Dylan, I hope you know what you're doing," he said without preamble. "I know exactly what I'm doing." This is getting out of hand. The story is everywhere. People are talking about boycotting businesses that Mason's family is involved with. His mother is getting harassing phone calls. His mother is also potentially a victim of his financial crimes. She should be grateful someone brought it to her attention. And Lila, what about her? I was quiet for a moment. What about her, Robert? She's still your wife. No, she's not. She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to betray everything we built together. Now she's just someone I used to know who made some very poor choices. After I hung up, Sasha emerged from the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. How are you feeling? Honestly, better than I have in months. I took a sip of coffee and realized it was true. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. No regrets? About which part? Exposing Mason for the predator he is? Warning his other victims? Making sure everyone knows what kind of person Lila really is? I shook my head. No regrets. My phone buzzed with another text from Lila. Someone bailed me out. I'm coming home. We need to talk. I showed the message to Sasha, who frowned. Who would bail her out? Probably her lawyer, so she must have finally gotten through to him. What are you going to say to her? Nothing. She's not coming home to my house. I changed the locks this afternoon. Sasha's eyebrows rose. You changed the locks? I also transferred half of our joint assets to a separate account, filed for divorce, and had her belongings packed and moved to a storage unit. I pulled out a business card. The storage unit key and address are with my attorney. You've been busy. I've been thorough. An hour later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I watched Lila get out of a taxi, looking haggard and defeated. Her expensive dress was wrinkled, her hair was a mess, and even from a distance, I could see that she'd been crying. She tried her key in the front door, then rang the doorbell when it didn't work. I didn't answer. She rang again, then started pounding on the door. Dylan, I know you're in there. Open this door. I opened the window instead. What do you want, Lila? She looked up at me, her face streaked with mascara. I want to come home. I want to talk about this like adults. This isn't your home anymore, and we're not married adults anymore. We're 2 people who used to know each other. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. You never got around to adding yourself to the deed, remember? You said it was too much paperwork. Her face went white. My things are in storage unit 247 on Maple Street. The key is with my lawyer. Dylan, please, can we just talk? Face to face? I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. There's nothing to talk about, Lila. You made your choice. You chose Mason over me, excitement over stability, lies over truth. Now you get to live with that choice. Mason's gone, she said desperately. He left me at the jail. He's not answering his phone. I think he's left town. Smart man. He probably saw the writing on the wall. What writing? What are you talking about? I almost felt sorry for her. She still had no idea how thoroughly her life was about to implode. Check social media, Lila. Check the news. Check your email. Mason's not just gone. He's finished. She pulled out her phone, and I watched her face change as she started scrolling through the notifications and messages that had been accumulating. Horror, disbelief, and finally understanding flickered across her features. You did this, she whispered. I revealed the truth. There's a difference. You destroyed him. You destroyed both of us. No, Lila. You destroyed us. I just made sure everyone else knew about it. She was crying now, big heaving sobs that might have moved me a week ago. Now I felt nothing but a cold satisfaction. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. What am I supposed to do? I don't know, and I don't care. That's not my problem anymore. Please, Dylan, I'll do anything. I'll make this right. You can't make this right, I interrupted. Some things can't be fixed, can't be forgiven, can't be forgotten. This is one of them. I closed the window and walked away, leaving her standing in the driveway. A few minutes later, I heard the taxi start up again and drive away. Sasha appeared beside me. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said, and meant it. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. My phone buzzed with one final text from Lila. "You'll regret this. Someday you'll realize what you've lost." I typed back, "I already know what I've lost. A lying, cheating wife and a bunch of fake friends. Best trade I ever made." Then I blocked her number and deleted her contact information. Dylan Harper, the man who had been betrayed and humiliated, was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who tried to cross him. The next morning brought news that Mason had indeed left town, apparently fleeing ahead of multiple criminal investigations and civil lawsuits. His mother had discovered the extent of his financial crimes and cut him off completely. Several of his other victims had come forward with their own stories, creating a pattern of predatory behavior that would follow him wherever he went. Lila had apparently moved in with Julia temporarily, but their friendship was already strained to the breaking point. Julia's role in the affair had made her a pariah in their social circle, and she was blaming Lila for the destruction of her reputation. As for me, I was surprised to find that I was something of a folk hero in certain circles. Other betrayed spouses reached out to share their own stories and ask for advice. A few even asked me to help them investigate their own suspicions about cheating partners. I declined most of these requests, but I did start a blog about digital security and protecting yourself from deception in relationships. It became surprisingly popular, generating enough income to supplement my day job and giving me a platform to help other people avoid the mistakes I'd made. 6 months later, I was a different person, living a different life. I'd lost weight, updated my wardrobe, and started dating again. Carefully, but with a confidence I'd never had before. I'd learned to trust my instincts and to value myself enough to walk away from anyone who didn't treat me with respect. The house felt different too. Lighter, cleaner, more peaceful. I'd redecorated completely, erasing every trace of Lila's presence and creating a space that was entirely my own. One evening, as I was working on my laptop in the living room, Sasha stopped by with takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. "Any word from the ex-wife lately?" she asked as we settled in to eat. "Not directly, but I heard through the grapevine that she's working at a call center in Portland and living in a studio apartment." "And Mason?" "Last I heard, he was in Florida, trying to convince some new victim to support him while he gets back on his feet. But his reputation follows him now. It's harder to run scams when your face is all over the internet." Sasha smiled. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad Lila cheated on you." "Why?" "Because it freed you to become the person you were always meant to be. The Dylan who was married to my sister was nice, but he was also kind of diminished, like he'd made himself smaller to fit into her world." She was right. I had made myself smaller, had accepted less than I deserved, had convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. "What about you?" I asked. "Any regrets about how everything went down?" Sasha considered the question seriously. "I regret that my sister turned out to be the kind of person who could do what she did. I regret that our relationship will probably never recover, but I don't regret helping you fight back. She needed to face consequences for her actions." We ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset through the large windows that faced the lake. It was peaceful, satisfying, complete. My phone buzzed with a notification from my blog, another message from someone who'd read my story and wanted to share their own experience with betrayal and recovery. I made a mental note to respond later, after dinner. "You know what the best part is?" I said to Sasha. "What?" "I'm not angry anymore. For months I was consumed with rage and hurt and the need for revenge. But now, I'm just happy. Happy with my life, happy with my choices, happy with who I've become." And if Lila showed up at your door tomorrow, begging for another chance, I didn't even have to think about it. I'd wish her well and close the door, not out of anger or spite, but because I genuinely don't want that life anymore. I've built something better. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Lila's number. She must have gotten a new phone, and I hadn't blocked this one yet. I answered on speakerphone. "Hello, Lila." "Dylan." Her voice was different, smaller, more uncertain. "I heard about your blog, about how well you're doing. Is there something you need?" I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not just say the words. I understand now what I threw away, what I lost. "Okay. I was wondering, is there any chance we could try again? Start over? I've learned so much about myself, about what really matters. No, I said simply. No? No, Lila, there's no chance. Not now, not ever. That door is closed permanently. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Yes, you did. But it was your mistake to make, and now it's your consequence to live with. I don't know how to move on from this. The same way I did. One day at a time, making better choices, building something new instead of trying to fix something that's irreparably broken. I miss you. I know. But missing someone and deserving another chance with them are two very different things. After I hung up, Sasha looked at me with something like admiration. That was incredibly mature of you. Or incredibly cold, depending on your perspective. No, it was honest. And honesty is something she never gave you. I deleted Lila's new number from my phone and added it to my blocked list. Then I returned to my dinner, my peaceful evening, my carefully constructed new life. Outside, the sun finished setting over the lake, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, serene, perfect. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be.